Whether you love the president or you hate him, I think we can all agree that the job sucks. I mean, just look at Obama. Here's a picture of him before and after he was president.
Ugh. Brother, ugh.
You would think that the guy was in office for 40 years the way that he aged. And look, I get it. It's really easy to criticize the guy that's in charge. We all do it, and we're allowed to. It's kind of like the guy that got cut from the junior varsity team, but still insults all the professionals from his couch.
So what do you think?
This is pretty much the worst video ever made.
But let's not forget, these people are completely ordinary as well. And also, like us, they're complete weirdos. The only difference is we don't have a PR team that can lie for us constantly. After doing some very thorough investigative research, I found that they might actually be bigger weirdos. Much weirder. The long list of odd shit that I found,
Just want you to stop saying odd shit.
it was as thick as an encyclopedia. I mean, we had multiple guys naming their private parts, for God's sake. And no, it wasn't Richard Nixon. That one's way too obvious. Some had criminal records, others were alcoholics, and really, that is just the tip of the iceberg. Hey everyone, I'm Jared, and this is History Bits, the channel where we learn about super important things like LBJ's little friend named Jumbo. Yeah, it's a true story, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I'm sure most of you have heard stories about US presidents like George Washington's wooden teeth, but spoiler alert, that's not even true. And of course, there's the Lincoln assassination or JFK's love for extramarital affairs.
Happy birthday to you.
But that's too well known. I mean, we all know about that stuff. And that's not why you watch these videos. You want the weird shit. So let's talk about that instead. George H.W. Bush. First, we need to start by saying rest in peace. Now, obviously, Bush Sr. is known for some great accomplishments, like the peaceful end of the Cold War. But he also has one of the most brutal lowlights in all of presidential history. And unfortunately for him, it was all caught on camera. And yes, we have the footage. On January 8th, 1992, George Bush Sr. was dealing with acute gastroenteritis during his visit to Japan. This business trip met its climax when the US president puked all over the Prime Minister of Japan during the dinner. After blowing chunks everywhere, he subsequently fainted and had the Secret Service rush in to his aid. That's rough. It kind of feels like when you piss the bed at a sleepover when you're a kid. You know, they're nice and they act cool about it, but you're probably never getting invited over ever again. But sometimes you just gotta take the L and walk home with a wet pair of boxers. In a similar manner of debauchery, there's the story of Richard Nixon. Well, the life of Richard Nixon, but also this particular story. Now, before we get into it, it's important to know that Nixon was a little bit of a drinker. Okay, he was a heavy drinker. And one day he got a little too drunk. And on that day, he decided it was time for the United States to nuke North Korea. That's pretty drunk. So what happened was, in 1969, an American spy plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan. Absolutely enraged, Nixon got on the phone with the chief of staff and demanded that we counterstrike. Now, fortunately for everyone, Nixon's national security advisor, Henry Kissinger, decided to step in. He got on the phone with the chief of staff and was like, no, don't listen to him. He's just trashed. Just ignore him. Don't listen to him. By this point, Kissinger was very familiar with Nixon's drinking, and he did the smart and sober thing, thank God, which was simply not launching a nuclear strike. And thankfully, we can laugh about it now, but that's not a good look. Now let's rewind to the 1840s when John Tyler was president. This man laid the foundation for the future fathers of America.
Elon Musk, Nick Cannon.
Tyler was well known for fathering 15 children. Now, luckily for him, this was back when you could afford a dozen kids, instead of now where like one is too expensive. Speaking of sex, remember that whole Johnson thing? Well, it's actually real. Multiple presidents had clever nicknames for their According to his former mistress, Nan Britton, Warren Harding referred to his package as Jerry, but that's still got nothing on LBJ. He referred to his package as Jumbo. Come on, you don't gotta lie. He was also that guy to stand next to you at a urinal even though there was 40 other ones wide open in the bathroom. He would also show off his package and remark, "It's the biggest thing you've ever seen, huh?" You're probably watching this thinking, "No way that's true." Google it. I promise it's true. Once again, this was while he was president of the United States. Yikes. And how about Andrew Jackson's $20 looking ass? In 1835, he was gifted a 1,400-pound wheel of cheese from New York dairy farmers. For reference, 1,400 pounds is the weight of this car and this guy. Except this was pure stomach-destroying cheese. Jackson was known for his anti-elitist stance and even invited people from all walks of life into the White House so they could try his cheese. Well, as I'm sure you guessed, things quickly got out of control as people started fighting over the cheese. The White House would be damaged pretty badly, but Jackson didn't have any regrets. Okay, so that's not weird enough for you? Well, how about this? Andrew Jackson had a pet parrot. And if you've never been around one in real life, they're like that aunt that never shuts up about the MLM that she just joined. But his parrot was so bad, it had to be removed from his funeral.
Damn you, Roger.
I guess the parrot, named Pull, began squawking profanity throughout the funeral while friends and family mourned and cried. And finally, the obscenities became so bad that they all agreed Pull had to be removed. I could just imagine sitting there and the priest is giving a heartfelt sermon and the parrot says, "Hide the drugs in the glove compartment. The cops are coming." And since we're talking about funerals, we have to mention that John Adams and Thomas Jefferson died on the same day. And that day was July 4th, 1826. Yeah, Independence Day. It doesn't get any more patriotic than that now, does it? All right, all the death has got me sad. Let's lighten the mood a little bit. In a bizarre sequence that belongs in the Flintstones, Gerald Ford was actually locked out of the White House in the middle of the night. He took his pup out for a stroll around 3 a.m., and when he returned, he couldn't get back inside. So he sat outside for a few hours until Secret Service noticed him. It's pretty crazy it took Secret Service a few hours to notice someone right outside the White House at 3 a.m. And while dogs are a man's best friend, you know what isn't? Rabbits. Just ask Jimmy Carter. R.I.P. once again. While fishing off the coast of Georgia, the president was attacked by a wild rabbit. The rabbit hurled himself at Carter, who was able to fight him off with the oar of his boat. This story would become the Killer Rabbit Incident. A tad excessive, but if the shoe fits. But this doesn't even come close to the craziest thing about Jimmy Carter. Get this. He had radioactive urine. No, I'm not even kidding. While in the Navy, Carter worked on submarines as a nuclear physicist, working with radioactive material. And after taking a few piss tests, his urine was deemed radioactive. I guess that's a better result than Bill Clinton's piss test.
So what do you want to do next?
Go to Mars, dude.
Now, while this sounds painful and downright horrifying, it didn't really affect his health too much. I mean, he recently just passed away at over 100 years old, which actually makes him the longest living United States president. It's pretty cool if you ask me. But with insane stories like this, presidents seem larger than life, but not always. Just ask James Madison. He was barely bigger than Simone Biles, stood at 5'4", 100 pounds soaking wet. What's worse, he can't even do a double layout with a half twist. So he settled for becoming the president of the United States instead. But he's probably the only president that shopped at Oshkosh Bagosh as an adult. Nope, wait. You know who else probably shopped there? Grover Cleveland, but not for the same reasons. Cleveland would go on to marry a young woman named Frances Folsom, and he knew this girl since she was a child, because she was actually the daughter of his legal partner named Oscar Folsom. They married when Grover was 49 and Frances was 21, and she served as the first lady during his second term. But hey, I'm not here to judge. If both parties are of age and willing, do whatever you want. But you gotta assume it changed the relationship with his business partner a little bit. And since we're talking about weird marriages, we can't forget Benjamin Harris. The 9th president of the United States married his wife's niece after his wife had passed away. I mean, that doesn't totally count as family, right? Harris and Caroline Scott would go on to have a few children and a long marriage. However, his kids from his first marriage were, they weren't too stoked about it. They cut off ties from Harris and his new bride. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like your second cousin becoming your stepmom, which is I think that'd be weird for anybody. And without further ado, I saved the best two for last. President Donald Trump and Joe... No. Just kidding. I'm not getting into that. So there you have it. From giant cheese fights to pet names for the male genitalia. The quirky history of US presidents has been anything but boring, and I assume it will just keep getting better. But I love these little factoids. It reminds me that they're just people too, and we're all a little bit weird. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. And if there's any funny stories we missed, which we're well aware we did, please let us know in the comments below. I'd love to check them out, and we will see you on the next one.